Hi, welcome to the next video on CI/CD tutorial. Now, in this video, we're going to be talking about exit codes. And if you remember from the previous video, we were talking about how do we understand that a CI system is able to catch break and changes in the first place, because it can reasonably parse all of these log files. So, in the exit code section that we have here, we're going to go ahead and talk about an exit code. The idea here is that every single script returns an exit code. Anything that you run always returns an exit code. So, before we actually make our own script, let's go ahead and use some native bash commands. So, I'm going to go ahead to my terminal here, which hopefully everybody can see. We're going to go ahead and start by listing a non-existent file. You can see here that we have this error that it cannot access the file. There's no such file or directory. But how do we get this exit code for it, knowing that it was an error? Well, we can type this little helpful thing here, echo $? And you see here that I have the exit code 2, which indicates the failure. What happens on success? So, in order to get a success, we're just going to do an echo command. Echo whatever. And then get the exit code for that. So you can see here that the exit code 0 implies success. But, so this works for anything. So you can imagine, for example, what happens if I typoed a command such as get status, and I typed in get status instead. You can see that this failed because Git doesn't understand what we're trying to do, which is reasonable because we can't spell. You can see that the exit code that it returned was 1. So this works in a very generic fashion. So you might notice at this point, interestingly enough, you would expect perhaps the exit code of 0 means failure and that an exit code of 1 is true, success, because you might expect it to be a Boolean output, where 1 is true and 0 is false. However, this is not always the case, and what you want to think of instead is to ask yourself the question, was there an error in executing the command? 0 means no. Anything other than 0 means yes. And exit codes have different values which allow you to look it up in the manual to understand what that value refers to. Let's go ahead and talk about Python. Alright, since everybody's familiar with Python, and so we're going to go ahead and open up the Python interpreter, which I'm doing right now by typing in Python. I'm going to go ahead and import OS and subprocess. Now, we're going to go ahead and do this ls command again, but we're going to go ahead and try and figure out how we get the exit code from Python. So if I go ahead and type in os.system ls like so, you can see it prints something. I'm going to go ahead and do os.wexit status on the return value. And you see that it returns 0, which is great. So now we're able to get the exit code from this. Let's go ahead and take in that same command again, but this time for a non-existent file. So you can see here it prints out to the screen, but let's see what the return status code is, and it's a 1. So this is great. And this allows us to do exactly what we want from Python to access the status code. To access the exit code. Now, let's go ahead and talk about actually studying these exit codes in the first place, because at the end of the day, you're going to need to learn how to write your own scripts and make sure that those scripts exit correctly with the right exit code. So, the first thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and exit out of Python, and we're going to go ahead and create a file. And we're going to create a file called bashexit.sh. In this case, I'll touch it, and then go ahead and edit it with your favorite editor. I tend to prefer Vim. So I'm going to go ahead and type in everything that we need here, but feel free to copy paste. So what I'm doing right now is just using native bash commands that allow me to put in any exit code I want by using what's called exit0 or exit59. And the idea behind this bash script that I'm making is that if I feed in anything other than hello as an input, it's going to give me a non-successful exit code of 59. So, assuming that you have this all typed in, we're going to go ahead, save it, and quit. And I'm going to go ahead and make that file executable. chmod plus x. And then let's try running it. Bash exit hello. We get an exit code of 0. Now, let's try goodbye. And we get an exit code of 59. Notice how, in this case, we didn't actually print anything to the screen. So don't always expect that there be a log entry or something printed out to the screen whenever something succeeds or fails. You always want to rely on exit codes. However, just doing this in Bash is probably not as enlightening as being able to do it in Python, since Python is definitely a popular language of choice. So let's go ahead and make this exact same script, but in Python. So, similar to before, touch bash exit.py, python exit.py. I'm going to go ahead and edit it, and again, something similar. We're going to go ahead and import sys, and sys will allow us to get the command line arguments that we pass in to the Python script. You can see on my left side how similar the bash and the Python scripts are here, and that's actually meant to be on purpose. We're mostly just trying to highlight to you how very straightforward it is. Now I've gone ahead and exited, and I've made this executable so I can run this from the command line as well. And now we're going to go ahead and do the exact same that we did with the bash script. We're going to do hello, and we get an exit code of 0. We're going to go ahead and do goodbye, and we get the exit code of 59. And there you go. And now you can see how the bash script and the Python script look very similar. Now, the very last thing that we want to do to close up this section is to understand about how to ignore exit codes. This is unfortunate, but sometimes it needs to happen because you encounter a script that decides to always give you an incorrect exit code even though it may have succeeded or failed. And this is kind of unfortunate, and there's not so much you can do about it if you're not the one who created the script and you don't have a way to patch it to make it work. In this case, what you might want to do in the CI is be able to ignore the failure. So, what I have here is a very nice command that allows you to create an exit 1. So let's go ahead and just run this command without anything first. So you can see that if I run this command like so, and get the status code, I get a status code of 1. Now make sure you type this correctly because this is a little bit of bash wizardry and you might get yourself into an accidental fork bomb. But I would suggest you copy and paste it from the tutorial page. Now, what we're going to go ahead and do here is to ignore the exit code of 1 and make it look like a success. So go back to the command, we're going to add in an OR, and this is a Boolean OR operator. And what this does is, if the first command in this fails, it's going to execute the second command for us. And remember that echo is special because echo will always succeed for the most part. There's very rare instances where echo fails, but in general it will succeed. And you can see here that it echoes ignore failure. And if I get the exit code for this, I get an exit code of 0. Now, let's go ahead and apply this to the Python script that we made before. So we have this Python exit, and remember that Python exit goodbye did an exit code of 59. We're going to go ahead and do an ignore on that. And now we get an exit code of 0. So, again, this is not really a hack in such a way to override these exit codes, but it's not something we generally recommend you do. If you understand exactly what's happening and you feel justified to use this, go ahead and use this. But for the most part, this really should not be happening. But we provide this example here just so that you know that something like this exists for you to use if your CI jobs are unable to succeed. Anyway, that's it for the exit code section. Tune in for the next section.